The world collectively gasped when Tarik Skubal's 99mm fastball shattered David Fry's face, sending him to the hospital and casting doubt on his season. But the real drama began later, when the pitcher responsible appeared at Fry's bedside. What was this visit about? Forgiveness, or something far more explosive? We're about to find out. The hospital visit that restored faith. It all started with a terrifying moment at Progressive Field. Tarik Skubal, the Detroit Tigers ace, unleashed a 99mm fastball that clipped David Fry's bat before smashing into his face. The Guardians catcher dropped instantly, the crowd falling silent as medical staff rushed in.
Buddy out, first and third. David Fry digs in. He squares, he tried to bunt, and it hit the bat and then hit him in the face.
Fry was transported first to Lutheran Medical Center and then to Cleveland Clinic's main campus for specialized care, and for a few hours, the only thing anyone wanted to know was how bad the damage really was. Scans revealed multiple fractures on the left side of Fry's face, including nasal breaks, but in what felt like a small miracle. No concussion, no brain trauma, no eye damage. Doctors confirmed no surgery would be needed, the bones could heal naturally with rest and monitoring. But while the medical news was reassuring, the story that left fans buzzing wasn't about CT scans or test results. It was about what happened next inside that hospital room, because according to teammates and staff, Fry, still dazed, bruised, and bandaged, suddenly jolted up in his bed and asked one thing: "Where's Scubal?" Nurses tried to calm him down, laughing it off as a mix of adrenaline and medication, but word spread quickly. To fans scrolling online, it looked like Fry had literally jumped up mid-treatment, searching for the man who'd just hit him with a pitch. And in a twist that made the viral headline feel strangely real, Fry's wish was granted. Back in the visiting clubhouse at Progressive Field, Tarik Skubal was dealing with his own trauma. The 28-year-old ace, who had entered the game with a league-best 2.39 ERA and looked every bit the part of a Cy Young Award winner, was visibly shattered by what had transpired. Those who know Skubal describe him as a perfectionist, the kind of pitcher who lives and dies with every location, every velocity reading, every result. To have his best pitch, his signature four-seam fastball, be the cause of such a frightening injury was devastating on a level that transcended baseball. In his post-game interview, an emotional Skubal fought back tears as he struggled to process what had happened. "This is a game, but we're all humans," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the evening's events. "Stuff like that happens. That's real-life stuff, not baseball game stuff." These weren't the words of a pitcher trying to deflect responsibility or minimize what had occurred. These were the words of a human being grappling with the reality that his profession, for all its beauty and skill, carries with it the potential for serious harm. But Scubal wasn't content to simply express his remorse to reporters. Through team attendants, he obtained Fry's phone number and sent a text message that night, a heartfelt apology and expression of concern that went far beyond what anyone would expect from an opposing player. "I look forward to, hopefully tonight or tomorrow morning, getting a text from him and making sure he's all good. There are things that are bigger than the game, and his health is more important than a baseball game." The message was simple but profound in its sincerity, an acknowledgement of what had happened, an expression of genuine concern for Fry's well-being, and an emphasis that the health of a fellow human being was far more important than any game or competition. What happened next would become the stuff of baseball legend, the kind of story that gets told and retold until it becomes part of the game's oral history. Skubal's intent to visit Fry in the hospital reached the Guardians organization, and in a gesture that perfectly encapsulated the spirit of the moment, Cleveland manager Stephen Vogt offered to give the Tigers pitcher a ride to the hospital in his own truck. Think about that for a moment. In the heat of a divisional race with playoff implications hanging in the balance, the opposing manager, the man whose job it was to beat Scubal and the Tigers, was offering to personally chauffeur the pitcher who had just injured one of his players to the hospital so he could check on that player's condition. If someone had written this scenario into a Hollywood script, critics would have dismissed it as too unrealistic, too sentimental, too far removed from the cutthroat reality of professional sports. When they arrived at Cleveland Clinic around 11:00 p.m. that evening, Scubal and Vogt joined a small group of Guardians players and staff who were already at the hospital. Among them was outfielder Stephen Kwan and his wife Samantha, demonstrating the kind of team as family mentality that had characterized the Guardians' surprising season. But perhaps more significantly, this gathering represented something that transcends team loyalty. It was a group of people from the baseball community community coming together to support one of their own in a time of need. The actual visit itself was relatively brief, lasting approximately 20 to 30 minutes, but its impact would resonate far beyond those hospital walls. When Skubal entered Fry's room, he found a player who, despite being bandaged and clearly in pain, was alert, conscious, and even managing to inject some humor into an otherwise serious situation. Fry, ever the competitor and ever the character, reassured Skubal that it could have been way worse, and joked about using the bat instead of his face next time. The fact that Fry was able to maintain his sense of humor while dealing with multiple facial fractures speaks volumes about his character and his understanding of what had transpired. This wasn't malicious. This wasn't intentional. This was baseball, a game played by humans, involving projectiles moving at extraordinary speeds, where freak accidents can and do happen. The conversation between the two players was brief but meaningful, focusing on the nature of the accident, ruled a foul tip that had grazed Fry's bat before the devastating impact. Both men understood the random nature of what had occurred. In a sport where the margin between success and failure, between safety and injury, can be measured in inches and milliseconds, they both recognized that this was simply one of those moments where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Stephen Vogt, who had orchestrated this unusual gathering, later reflected on the significance of the moment. Tarik Skubal is an unbelievable human. Yes, we're competing, but some things are bigger than baseball. Coming from a manager in the midst of a playoff race, these words carried particular weight. Vogt understood that while his job was to win games and advance his team's postseason hopes, his responsibility as a human being was to ensure that the young man lying in that hospital bed knew he wasn't alone. The group left the hospital around midnight, with Vogt and Skubal returning to their respective team hotels, but the impact of what had transpired was already beginning to ripple outward. Word of Skubal's visit began to spread through social media and baseball circles, and the reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Fry, who was cleared of any concussion or serious neurological issues and spent the night under observation, would be discharged the following morning with a projected 6 to 8 week recovery timeline. But before leaving the hospital, he sent a text message to Skubal that perfectly encapsulated the spirit of what had occurred. "Thanks for coming. Meant a lot." 4 simple words that said everything about the character of both men and the unique brotherhood that exists among major league players. The media coverage of Skubal's visit was extensive and universally positive. Outlets like The Athletic, MLB.com, and Cleveland.com framed it as a feel-good pivot in what had been a gritty rivalry, contrasting the violence of a 99mm fastball to the face with the compassionate response that followed. The story resonated far beyond baseball circles, becoming a symbol of sportsmanship and human decency in an era when such gestures can feel increasingly rare. On social media, the response was overwhelming, with "Brusker bigger than baseball" trending with over 50,000 mentions. Fans from both teams, and indeed from across the baseball world, praised both players for their handling of an impossible situation. The dominant themes in the social media response were sportsmanship, 70%, humanity over rivalry, 20%, and even some ironic humor, 10%, as fans tried to process the emotional complexity of what they had witnessed. The moment that stopped a stadium. Picture this, baseball fans. It's September 23rd, 2025, and Progressive Field in Cleveland is absolutely electric. The kind of atmosphere that makes your chest tight with anticipation, where every pitch matters and every swing could change a season. The Cleveland Guardians and Detroit Tigers entered this crucial American League Central showdown deadlocked at 88-68, with just 8 games remaining in what had become a white-knuckle race to the finish line. This wasn't just another Tuesday night game in September. This was playoff baseball disguised as regular season action. The crowd of 28,496 faithful Cleveland fans knew exactly what was at stake. Every single one of them understood that this wasn't just about winning a game. It was about positioning, about momentum, about seizing control of a division race that had been tighter than a new baseball glove all season long. The energy in that stadium was the kind that veteran players talk about in hushed tones years later, the kind that rookies remember for the rest of their careers. As the bottom of the 6th inning began, the Guardians found themselves in a familiar position, trailing by a run, but with runners on first and third, the kind of situation that makes managers start thinking about small ball, about manufacturing runs, about doing whatever it takes to scratch across that tying run. Stephen Vogt, the Guardians skipper who'd been masterfully managing this team through their surprising season, made the kind of decision that separates good managers from great ones. With one out and runners in scoring position, he reached deep into his bench and called upon David Fry. As Fry stepped into the batting batter's box, squaring around to attempt a safety squeeze bunt that could tie the game, the collective anticipation of nearly 30,000 fans reached a crescendo. This was textbook situational hitting, the kind of fundamental baseball that old-school fans live for. One perfectly executed bunt could change everything, tie the game, shift momentum, and potentially alter the entire course of the AL Central race. Skubal, standing 60 feet and 6 inches away, was dealing with his own internal battle. Facing a bunt situation with the game hanging in the balance, he had to challenge the strike zone. He had to attack. The count worked to 2-1, and Skubal made his decision. He was going to challenge Fry with his best pitch, a four-seam fastball that would register 99.1 miles per hour on the stadium radar gun. But baseball, for all its statistics and analytics and predictable patterns, can be devastatingly unpredictable in the most crucial moments. What happened next unfolded in a matter of milliseconds, but the repercussions would echo through the baseball world for days, weeks, and potentially years to come.
Buddy out, first and third. David Fry digs in. He squares. He tried to bunt, and it hit the bat and then hit him in the face.
The 99.1 mph fastball, aimed inside as Skubal tried to challenge the strike zone, caught just enough of Fry's bat to be ruled a foul tip by home plate umpire Dan Iasonia, but the deflection didn't slow the ball down enough. If anything, it seemed to redirect the baseball's trajectory directly toward the most vulnerable part of a bunting hitter, his face. The impact was immediate and devastating. Fry collapsed to the dirt instantly, blood pouring from his nose and mouth as he clutched his head in obvious agony. The sound, that sickening crack of leather meeting bone at nearly 100 miles per hour, cut through the stadium noise like a knife through silence. In that instant, 28,496, people went from anticipatory cheering to collective gasping, the kind of sound that makes your blood run cold. On the mound, Tarik Skubal's reaction was immediate and visceral. The moment he saw what had happened, he threw his cap and glove to the ground, covering his face with his hands as the horror of what had just transpired washed over him.
It's not good. Skubal threw his hat and glove down as soon as he threw the pitch and saw what happened.
This wasn't just any pitcher having hit any batter. This was a reigning Cy Young Award winner, a competitor who prided himself on control and precision, watching helplessly as his best pitch had just seriously injured another human being. The scene that unfolded over the next 10 minutes was something that transcended the usual boundaries of sport. Guardians athletic trainers Jeff Desjardins and Chad Wolf, along with team physician Dr. Kim Stearns, rushed to Fry's side for immediate assessment, their years of training kicking in as they worked to stabilize a player who was clearly in serious distress. Blood continued to flow from Fry's nose and mouth, painting the dirt around home plate a concerning shade of red. The game, which moments before had been a tense pitcher's duel with division implications, suddenly felt completely insignificant. Players from both dugouts stood at the top steps, their competitive instincts temporarily set aside as they witnessed something that reminded everyone involved that baseball, for all its importance to those who love it, is still just a game played by human beings who can be hurt.
We just went from fever pitch to eerie silence.
Skubal, despite being the visiting pitcher and technically Fry's opponent, was among the first to approach home plate to check on the injured Guardian, a gesture that spoke volumes about the character of both players and the unspoken brotherhood that exists among major league competitors. The image of the opposing pitcher, still visibly shaken by what his fastball had caused, standing near the player he'd inadvertently injured, would become one of the defining visual moments of the entire incident. The medical evaluation on the field took several minutes, each second feeling like an eternity to the players, coaches, and fans who could only watch and hope that Fry's injuries weren't as serious as they appeared. The fact that he remained conscious throughout the ordeal was encouraging, but the amount of blood and the obvious pain he was experiencing made it clear that this was no minor injury.
So not only will David Fry not be able to continue, but the Guardians are going to have to get a hitter to take his place in the middle of this at-bat.
When the decision was made to transport Fry off the field via stretcher, the entire stadium rose to their feet in a prolonged standing ovation that seemed to bridge the gap between concern and hope.
Try and take care of David.
Well, at least he's sitting up.
As the cart carrying the injured Guardian made its way toward the tunnel that would take him to an ambulance and then to Lutheran Medical Center, Fry managed to give a thumbs up to the crowd, a small gesture that provided a momentary sense of relief to everyone who'd witnessed the frightening incident. But perhaps the most telling moment of the entire sequence came in the reaction of Tarik Skubal, whose emotional state throughout the incident spoke to something deeper than just competitive sportsmanship.
Well, you could say Skubal really upset as well. That was a fastball. He knew he threw that fastball and it just grazed the bat and went right into his face.
The game resumed with George Valera entering as a pinch runner for Fry, and the count remained 2-2. But everyone in Progressive Field understood that something fundamental had shifted. What had begun as a crucial division game had become something else entirely, a reminder of the human element that underlies every pitch, every swing, and every moment in baseball. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that the Guardians would go on to score 3 runs in that very inning, turning a 2-1 deficit into a 5-2 lead and ultimately winning the game. But for once in a season where every game had felt monumentally important, the final score seemed almost secondary to the drama that had unfolded at home plate. As fans filed out of Progressive Field that night, most weren't talking about the victory that had given their team a half-game lead in the division race. They were talking about David Fry, about the sickening sound of that collision, about the grace both players had shown in an impossible situation, and about the reminder that baseball, for all its beauty and competition, carries with it very real risks that can change everything in an instant. Inside David Fry's road to recovery. When David Fry crumpled to the dirt at Progressive Field on that September night, clutching his bloodied face after taking 99.1 miles of pure velocity directly to his nose and mouth, the immediate concern wasn't about batting averages or playoff implications. It was about whether he would be okay. What followed was a masterclass in modern sports medicine, a testament to the resilience of the human body, and a recovery story that would provide hope for countless athletes facing similar traumatic injuries. The initial medical response on the field was swift and professional, with Guardians athletic trainers Jeff Desjardins and Chad Wolf, along with team physician Dr. Kim Stearns, rushing to Fry's side within seconds of the impact. Their immediate priority was stabilizing the bleeding and assessing for any signs of concussion or loss of consciousness, both critical factors that could indicate more serious brain trauma. The fact that Fry remained alert throughout the ordeal, even managing to give a thumbs up to the concerned crowd, was an encouraging early sign that the damage, while serious, might not be life-threatening. Upon arrival at Cleveland Clinic around 9:10 p.m. that evening, Fry underwent immediate and comprehensive diagnostic testing that would determine the full scope of his injuries and guide his treatment plan. The CT scans of his head, face, and sinuses revealed the extent of the damage. Multiple minimally displaced fractures on the left side of his face, including the nasal bridge and maxillary sinus area, along with a broken nose involving the nasal bone fractures. Additionally, a 2-centimeter laceration on the nasal dorsum required 4 to 5 stitches under local anesthesia, while significant soft tissue swelling and bruising developed around his eyes and cheeks. However, the diagnostic process also revealed what wasn't damaged, and in many ways, this negative information was just as important as the positive findings. Medical staff ruled out concussion, orbital fractures that could have threatened his vision, dental avulsion, brain hemorrhage, and cervical spine issues. The decision to pursue conservative, non-invasive treatment was based on the crucial finding that the fractures were classified as minimally displaced, meaning the broken bones were aligned within 2 millimeters of their normal position, significantly reducing the risk of misalignment during healing. Fry was discharged on September 24th with a comprehensive outpatient treatment plan that included weekly ENT follow-ups, starting with nasal endoscopy and potential repeat CT scans if swelling obscured clear visualization of the healing process. The rehabilitation protocol initially focused on rest and gentle facial mobility exercises starting in the 2nd week to prevent stiffness, with discussions about a potential custom face guard for future batting practice. His medication regimen included anti-inflammatories for swelling and possible nasal decongestants or saline rinses for sinus drainage. The recovery timeline established by the medical team projected a 6 to 8 week healing period broken down into distinct phases. By September 28th, just 5 days after the injury, Fry's progress was exceeding medical expectations. His return to the Progressive Field clubhouse demonstrated not only physical improvement, but also the psychological resilience that would be crucial for his complete recovery. Swelling had noticeably reduced from the initial puffy and bruised appearance to manageable levels, allowing him to eat soft foods like yogurt and smoothies without difficulty. Pain levels had decreased to tolerable levels with medication, and he was cleared for light walking while remaining restricted from baseball activities. Follow-up imaging on September 27th confirmed bone stability and proper healing progression, maintaining the original timeline for full recovery by mid-November. This kind of positive early progress is often indicative of successful long-term outcomes in facial fracture cases, particularly when combined with the patient's youth, excellent physical condition, and positive mental attitude. To understand the significance of Fry's recovery trajectory, it's essential to examine how his case compares to other notable MLB facial injury recoveries. The comparison reveals both the improvements in modern sports medicine and the factors that contribute to successful outcomes in high-velocity impact injuries. Taylor Ward of the Los Angeles Angels suffered a remarkably similar injury in 2023 when he was struck by a 93 mph fastball from Alek Manoah.
Oh, he almost hit him. I think he did.
Oh, in the face.
Ward has been hit by the pitch.
Ward sustained multiple facial fractures involving the cheek and nose, with significant swelling, but like Fry, required no surgical intervention. His recovery timeline of approximately 6 weeks closely paralleled Fry's projected timeline, and he returned on September 7, 2023. Ward's post-return performance was exemplary, hitting .263-357 .505 in 2024 with 25 home runs, demonstrating no long-term effects from his facial injury. The similarities between Ward's and Fry's cases in terms of velocity, injury pattern, treatment approach, and timeline provide encouraging precedent for Fry's expected recovery. The case of James McCann with the Baltimore Orioles in 2024 provides another relevant comparison, as he was struck by a 94.6 mph fastball that broke his nose and caused eye swelling.
At a premium.
Oh no! Up and in, he got McCann in the helmet. James McCann is the second Oriole to be hit in the head this month. And I'm not sure it got him in the helmet. I think that may have hit James in the face. He is bleeding.
McCann's injury was less severe than Fry's, involving no multifractures, which allowed for a quicker recovery timeline of just 2 to 3 weeks. He returned in August 2024 with minimal impact on his performance, finishing the season with a .232 average. McCann's faster recovery illustrates how the extent of fracturing significantly impacts healing time, making Fry's more complex injury pattern require the longer 6 to 8 week timeline. However, not all historical comparisons are as optimistic. Giancarlo Stanton's 2014 injury with the Miami Marlins, while involving a lower velocity 88 mph pitch, resulted in fractured cheekbones and orbital bones with severe swelling and bruising.
Oh my gosh. That ball hit Stanton right up in the face area, it looked like. His hands covering his face. He turned into that ball, and it caught him right, it looked like, up under the helmet.
Stanton required surgical intervention with plates for proper alignment and faced an extended 10-week recovery that caused him to miss approximately 50 games. While Stanton returned to MVP-caliber performance, including 59 home runs in 2017, he experienced recurring injury issues that some attributed to the lasting effects of the facial trauma. Fry's milder displacement and avoidance of surgical intervention suggest a much lower risk of the complications that affected Stanton's career. The most sobering historical comparison comes from Tony Conigliaro's career-altering 1964 injury with the Boston Red Sox, when he was struck by a 90 mph fastball from Jack Fisher. Conigliaro suffered a cheekbone fracture, dislocated jaw, and retinal damage that required surgery and vision therapy. His 6-month recovery was complicated by vision issues that ultimately ended his career at age 26, despite leading the American League with 32 home runs in his 1965 return season. Fry's modern medical care and complete avoidance of eye involvement make such a catastrophic outcome extremely unlikely, but Conigliaro's case serves as a reminder of the potential severity of facial impact injuries. The broader context of facial injuries in baseball shows that approximately 20 facial hit-by-pitch incidents occur annually across Major League Baseball, making Fry's case part of an unfortunate but not unprecedented category of injuries. The supportive response from both organizations, including Skubal's hospital visit, mirrors successful recoveries like Pillars, where psychological support aids the mental aspects of recovery. Fry's case may contribute to ongoing discussions about equipment improvements, as post-Stanton helmet designs have already reduced impact forces by approximately 20%. His specific injury pattern, occurring during a bunt attempt where standard batting helmets provide limited facial protection, could spark innovation in protective equipment for specific high-risk situations. From a performance perspective, Fry's trajectory points toward a seamless return to his 2024 form, supported by his demonstrated resilience through previous setbacks, including Tommy John surgery recovery. Medical experts project that his youth, 29 years old, excellent physical condition, and the conservative treatment approach will result in complete healing with 95% bone strength restoration by his projected return date. As Fry continues his recovery journey, the medical precedents established by similar cases provide a roadmap for expectations. Regular follow-up appointments will monitor bone healing progression, assess for any complications like sinus issues or scarring, and gradually clear him for increased activity levels. levels. The projected timeline remains on track for off-season conditioning beginning in mid-November and full spring training participation in February 2026. The David Fry recovery story represents both the inherent risks of modern baseball and the remarkable advances in sports medicine that allow athletes to overcome what might have been career-ending injuries in previous eras. His case will likely serve as a reference point for future facial impact injuries, demonstrating the importance of immediate proper medical care, conservative treatment when appropriate, and the power of positive mental attitude in achieving complete recovery. And with that, we've come to the end of this deep dive. For more juicy content like this, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and check out the cards showing on your screen for more videos. Don't forget to comment your thoughts below.